Hi folks, I'm Bill Camarada, and you're watching a very special video from Bill's Box of Sound. This video, I've been doing videos about Frank Zappa's releases for quite a while now, and we're talking about a Halloween release. Halloween has always been special. It was Frank Zappa's favorite holiday, and for a while, every Halloween in New York City, he had a special string of concerts, but there were none that were more special than the 1978 concerts. Now, there's been archival releases from the Zappa vault of Frank Zappa stuff. As a matter of fact, way back in 2003, Dweezil was the producer, along with Vaultmeister Joe Travers, of this special thing called Frank Zappa Halloween. It is a DVD audio disc. It's not a regular CD, and currently this is not in print, so it's a collector's item. This contains recordings from the 1978 Halloween run at the Palladium in New York City. And it's also the main feature of which we're going to be talking about in just a minute. But then there were other Frank Zappa Halloween releases, such as Halloween 77. Now this is the Halloween show from that year, but there was a boxed set that came out with all 6 shows from the 77 run. And that box included a mask and a special booklet. And there was a memory stick, not like this though. It looked like a little candy bar that said, "Oh, Punky" on it. And I don't have a copy of that. Why, you may ask? Because at the time that that came out, I really could not afford to buy that expensive box. So what I did is I bought from Apple Music the download of the entire run, which also includes a digital booklet. So I was able to listen to all of that music. And I bought the Highlights CD just to have it in my collection. Then there was another release which came out in 2019 of the Halloween 1973 run. This is the highlights disc from the Auditorium Theater in Chicago. And this also came out as a special boxed set with a Halloween costume, including a mask in it. And I did not buy that one either because of the same reason. It was very expensive. Now, I almost bought this box, but I decided to keep going with my tradition, and I picked up the Halloween 81 Highlights CD because another box came out of the 1981 Halloween shows that had yet another Halloween mask and a Halloween costume inside of it. Now, I've shown them on this channel before. I'm going to go back and show some archival footage of me at Prestige Media with my good friend John Basso, who has these boxes. He bought all those boxes. I didn't. So when the news came out about a 1978 box, everybody's always talked about that was the best one. As a matter of fact, there are bootlegs of this. And you can even watch them on YouTube. It's just stills and sound, but still you can listen to the show. Recorded from the audience, and it's a bootleg quality recording. But this new set is unlike anything that's ever come out. And finally, I got the box. And this has inside of it a Halloween mask, and it has a pitchfork that is battery operated. There's a battery inside of it. And when you turn it on and light it up and shine it on the artwork of the box, there's all sorts of little ultraviolet goodies that you'll be able to see. And then deep inside of that box, this wonderfully bound book, or shall we say booklet plus. It's got a complete booklet of all the liner notes, pictures, track listings, etc. And of course, it's got all 5 CDs. Yes, this is a 5 CD set, and it contains 2 shows. It's got the Halloween show from October 31st, and it's got the first of 2 shows from October 27th. Now, when you take the pitchfork that's inside of the box and you shine it on certain parts of the interior of the box, things light up that you can't see under regular light. It's pretty cool. Now, if you can't afford the box, you can purchase the download. And for less than $50, you'll get all the tracks when you buy it on either Apple Music or Amazon. However, if you want high resolution, you can go on Qobuz, or you can go on HD Tracks and download that. The price is significantly higher, but it's still high resolution audio of these shows, lovingly mixed by Craig Parker Adams and produced with love by Amit Zappa and the Vaultmeister, Joe Travers. And there is also a highlights version, just like the highlights that I purchased previously. We've got the highlights CD, which contains 78 minutes worth of fantastic music from the Halloween show, as well as a booklet. And if you are the vinyl-loving sort of individual, there are 2 different versions of the highlights on vinyl. We've got the one with the candy corn vinyl, which also has a paper Halloween mask inside of it. And then there is a blood splatter version, which is the exact same music and the exact same booklet inside, but it costs a few dollars less. I've listened to both versions of the vinyl, and the vinyl is pretty darn good. The audio is cut by Chris Bellman at Bernie Grundman Mastering, and the records were pressed by Precision Pressing. Great sounding records. I A-B'd the records and the CDs. They both sound fantastic. For the 1978 run at the Palladium in New York City, there were 6 shows altogether. There was an early and a late show on October the 27th. There was an early and a late show on October 28th. There was one little bit longer show on the 29th. Then they took the 30th off, and on the 31st of October, Halloween night, there was a long concert. A concert that has been known for years as the big one. Yeah, the big one. It's a concert that is just short of 4 hours long. And it's one long, complete performance. Now, there are some legendary concerts in the world of rock and roll that have taken years to come out to the buying public of you and me. One such concert is the Grateful Dead, Cornell. This is a 5-record set of that fantastic concert. Now, if you've heard this and you are a Grateful Dead fan, you've got to admit this is one unbelievable show. But as far as Frank is concerned, the Halloween 78 show, it's got the nickname of the big one for a reason. It is epic. Let's go through the tracks on that show, which is included in this box. Okay, once again, there are 2 concerts in this box. The first one is the last show, the Halloween show. And the second show is the very first show of the run, the 27th of October, early show. There were 2 shows that night. So, let's start with disc 1, the Halloween show. Starts out with a show start. You hear the band getting on stage, starting up, and then you hear a guitar solo of Ancient Armaments. Now, if you're familiar with that title, Ancient Armaments, then you're also familiar with this single here, most likely. This was the 45 for I Don't Want to Get Drafted, which on the flip side had that guitar solo, Ancient Armaments. And this was the last record to be released on the Zappa Records label before Barking Pumpkin Records started. And Frank changed distributors from Polygram to CBS. So if you've heard Ancient Armaments before, that's where you've heard it. Either that or on one of the downloads of the Zappa birthday bundles from Apple Music. But I'm getting off track. Ancient Armaments is a great little solo. This is longer. Almost a minute longer than the single version because it's unedited. And Frank edited the single to suit his purposes at the time. Next, we've got 3 3/4 minutes of talking from Frank, introducing, this is the concert, the big one. Happy Halloween, everybody. And he says that we're going to be playing all of our regular show, and we're going to be playing a lot of songs that we don't play. This is going to be one long show. He warns you. So, good on Frank. So, then we go into the regular show. Starts out with Dancin' Fool, standard beginning. And at the end of Dancin' Fool, he is joined on stage by the girl who was on TV with him when he hosted Saturday Night Live on the 21st of October, doing the "You must be a Libra. What? You're Jewish? Love your nails." That stuff. It goes from there to Easy Meat, great version, great guitar solo. And then we go into Honey, Don't You Want a Man Like Me, standard version of that. Then we go into Keep It Greasy, which is from Joe's Garage, but Joe's Garage is not going to come out for about another year. You're going to hear a lot of songs played at this concert that didn't come out on Zappa albums till 1 to 3 years later or more. So, yeah, nice little quick version of Keep It Greasy with no long guitar solo. Then after Keep It Greasy, we go into The Meek Shall Inherit Nothing. Very similar to the arrangement that was played on Saturday Night Live earlier in the month. Then City of Tiny Lights with Denny Wally on vocals, because Adrian Belew's not there anymore. And a slide solo from Denny as well. That's a 10-minute version. So then from City of Tiny Lights, we go into a version of Pound for a Brown, which after the head of the tune is done, we get a great little solo from Ed Mann. And as his solo is winding down, they're setting up a time change, going from 7/4 to a 13/4 or 13/8, whatever the time signature was. Now, this song was listed as also being on You Can't Do That on Stage number 6, 13. And the spoken intro that you hear on You Can't Do That on Stage Anymore is not from this concert. It's from the late show of the first night of the concert run. Okay? So, once they slide from the 7/4 Pound for a Brown into the 13/4 of 13, Frank introduces El Shankar, and we get to hear the first of this evening's dual soloing adventures of Frank Zappa and El Shankar. And it sounds like Frank is really into exploring the style of playing that El is doing with his Indian influence and his Indian style violin. I don't know what to call it. Is it raga style improvisation or what? I love this melodic exploration, but I don't know exactly what to call it. So this goes on instead of the 6 minutes that you hear on You Can't Do It on Stage Anymore, number 6, to a 17.5 minute version of 13. It's fantastic. Little side note on You Can't Do That on Stage Anymore, Volume 6, there's also a track called Lobster Girl, which says it's from this show, but it's not from this show, and it's not going to be on this package. So you will not find Lobster Girl performed on this package. But then, after this long solo, which is wonderful, epic version, we go into the story of Ms. X for 8 minutes, where Frank brings Warren Cucurullo up to the stage to tell a little story about a adventure that happened to him. Now, you can take or leave Warren's story for whatever it's worth, but the real good stuff about this track is Frank, the whole time that Warren's telling the story, is directing the band and creating a compulsory improvisational composition right there on stage. So it's a lot of fun checking that out. After Warren gets done with his story, they bring up some girl to do some sort of a sexual fantasy thing. They talk to Nancy for 2 minutes. It's probably the most superfluous track on this entire set, but with the number of epic songs you're about to hear, well, it's worth going through the extra 2 minutes. So when Nancy's done, Frank announces that they're going to play Dynamo Hum. That's the end of disc 1. Beginning of disc 2, you hear Dynamo Hum in all of its splendor. And then Frank announces that they're going to do a lot of songs that they never do and they have not yet rehearsed. So they go into, from Freak Out, Go Cry on Somebody Else's Shoulder. And this is great because we really get to hear Frank singing this song on his own. Frank was the lead vocalist of choice for that night. He didn't have an Adrian Belew like last year, and Denny Wally can sing a couple songs, but during this concert, you get a lot of songs sung by Frank. You really get to hear his voice, and he is in fine form. I love it. So he goes on with Go Cry on Somebody Else's Shoulder, and then he goes into Little Rubber Girl. Now, once again, back to You Can't Do That on Stage Anymore. You hear on that release, Frank saying, "A year ago today is when you went away." The beginning of Go Cry on Somebody Else's Shoulder, and then they go right into Little Rubber Girl. Well, here you hear the unedited way that it happened. You start with the plain song, Go Cry on Somebody Else's Shoulder, and then he goes into Little Rubber Girl. I don't need you, I don't want you. And it's great. You don't hear him announcing raw, unbridled buffoonery as it was assembled for You Can't Do That on Stage Anymore. Remember, this is the show as it happened. Then, at the end of that song, we go into The Idiot Bastard Son, with Frank singing it by himself, and the acoustic guitar from Art Barrow is really tasty on this. From there, we go into Bobby Brown, a standard reading of Bobby Brown, and then we go into Conehead. Now, if you're familiar with the Halloween 77 box set, there was a very long track called Conehead that was instrumental. This Conehead is a completely different composition. This is about the character from Saturday Night Live, and you've heard the song on You Are What You Is. And this song includes audience participation with hats and also Shankar soloing about 3 minutes and 50 seconds in. And then, about 6 minutes in, Frank takes over with some fuzz tone loveliness on this version of Conehead, which goes into a 11-minute version of Suicide Jump, also from You Are What You Is, but not released yet. And this is an 11-minute version. There's a false start because they start with the regular bump, 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 that tempo. And then Frank says, no, let's take it down a bit. He slows it down. It gets nice and bluesy. And Denny Wally puts in a really nice solo in the middle 8, or is it the middle 16? Then Frank encourages the audience to sing along. Go on, get it over with then. Go on, get it over with then. And he says, keep singing while I go get my guitar. Which, as I hear it, is from, you think this concert's great already? Hold my beer. Because he gets his guitar, and the next 3 and 4 minutes is Frank bashing away at a wonderful solo with wild abandon, and then announces the next song is Little House I Used to Live In. And they go in to the introduction of that tune that was on Burnt Weenie Sandwich and Fillmore 71, but it's not the same. It's only based on the version from Burnt Weenie Sandwich, the introduction that Ian Underwood did. Do, 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 do. It's based on that. The intro gives way to a framework that contains keyboard and drum solos, and in the case of these shows, a great solo from Shankar's violin as well. And then Frank joins in, and Frank and Elle solo together, and then they morph back into the 13 rhythm. And it just gets better from there. At the end of Little House I Used to Live In, Vinny puts in a nice solo by himself, culminating in the big C chord. Da! Another epic performance. But wait, we're not done yet. Oh no, we got lots more to go. Let's go into Watermelon and Easter Hay, the track that was to be introduced to the majority of people on Joe's Garage, Acts 2 and 3. So just when you thought things couldn't get any better, after the head of the tune for Watermelon and Easter Hay, Shankar gets a solo, and Frank trades off with him in an absolutely beautiful dual solo. Does it by himself, tosses it back to Elle around 7 minutes in, and it's full-on improvisations and duets. And then back to the deep catalog songs that the band has not rehearsed for this show. There's just epic version after epic version. Stinkfoot comes later. 8 minutes and 40 seconds. A standard version with a damn good solo, not too heavy. No poodle lecture or anything like that. And then, at the end of Stinkfoot, we end disc 2 and go into disc 3. So we've already gone through more than 2.5 hours of this concert, and we're about to get into more madness. Disc 3 kicks off with Take Your Clothes Off When You Dance, an instrumental version of that tune from Whirling It for the Money. And Frank says it's a twist version, and it's got solos by L. Shankar, Ed Mann, Tommy, and I think Peter Wolf as well is playing solo on this one. And there's also the acoustic guitar that's in there. And I especially love the little cadenza that Shankar does at the end of Take Your Clothes Off When You Dance. And then Frank starts calling out songs, which the band plays immediately without delay. He goes into Peaches and Regalia, similar to the version on Tinseltown Rebellion, but with a couple of different timbres in place. Then we go to Strictly Genteel, a beautiful 5 minute and 45-second rendition of Strictly Gentile. And then Frank says, here's another waltz, Sofa number 2. And they play Sofa, and yes, it is Sofa number 2. Frank is singing it, and it's beautiful. Another one of these songs that you don't get to hear Frank sing very often, and here it is done wonderfully. And after that, get ready, man. Another epic performance is coming your way. Packard Goose. Almost a year before the release of Joe's Garage, you get to hear this song played. And this version is 19 and a half minutes long, or just about that. After the head of the tune, Frank goes into the music is the best spoken part of the song. And even though people aren't going to be used to hearing this in another year or so, when he says music is the best, the crowd goes nuts. And it's wonderful. So then, here comes the middle section, the solos. Kicks off with Shankar. Then it goes to Frank and Shankar doing a duel and a duet. And then Frank comping while El interjects with his soloing. Then back to dueling with each other. Then Frank by himself. And just variations in fantasy on all of the above. Solos rhythmically playing against Vinny, playing his best, just going nuts. And then it's kind of like the end of the main version of the concert. Band introductions of everybody. And then Frank says, you know what? We're not going to go off stage and then have you beg us to come back and we play our encores. We're going to play all of our encores now. And they go into Magic Fingers, the spirited version of that. And then we go into Don't Eat the Yellow Snow. Of course, regular fare for a Zappa concert of that time. And there's always little differences in every single performance of the Yellow Snow Suite. This is similar to the You Can't Do It on Stage Anymore Volume 1, but there's differences all around the place. Especially in the Rollo section. I can understand the lyrics to Rollo better than I ever could before. Then after that, we go into Camarillo Brillo. Nice quick version which slows down at the end. And then Frank goes into Muffin Man. And the only bad thing about this version of Muffin Man is Frank's taking the microphone and giving it to the people in the audience to sing along. And apparently there's a couple of people that are drunk or inebriated in some way, because I can't sing it. Drunk and singing, Muffin Man, they don't know the words. You can hear Frank trying to coach them to the words, and it just ain't working. So it's like, screw this, let's grab the guitar. And we have a nice, almost 5-minute version of Muffin Man after that. So then we've got Black Napkins, which starts with Frank by himself, with his first part of the solo. His playing is reminiscent of the Shaker Booty Tango a little bit, but then he transitions to the Deathless Horsey at about 6 minutes 15 seconds, then passes it over to El, and then Frank joins El for the secondary melody, and then the Mind Meld begins, both of them just soloing off of each other. There's a Black Napkins coda 15 minutes in, and then there is the end of the show. A 16-minute, 41-second version of Black Napkins with the Deathless Horsey. That is the end of the show. Total concert time, 3 hours, 49 minutes, 229 minutes, 37 tracks, no intermissions. Man, after that, I got to take a break. We'll be right back with the next show. gets in the air, you don't say in the title or tells the story, makes the details sound real good about what to do if the geese over there don't believe in the birds we got over here. You can't run a race without no street, and pretty soon there won't be no street. Oh man. Do I look okay? Oh, my hair is getting good in the back. All right. Are you ready for the next concert? The first concert from this run of Halloween shows is live at the Palladium, the same place, from the 27th, the early show. And they start with kind of like a funk vamp, and Frank comes out, does a little guitar solo to start the evening, and then he goes into Dancin' Fool. And then we get Easy Meat, standard version with Denny Wally on vocals. Honey, Don't You Want a Man Like Me after that. And then Keep It Greasy, an early version of what would end up on Joe's Garage. Then The Meek Shall Inherit Nothing, very textbook version of the same arrangement from the Saturday Night Live appearance. But some really nice double bass guitar voicing. You got to remember, yeah, Frank had two keyboard players, Tommy Mars and Peter Wolf, who played well off of each other because keyboards have a lot of different timbres. But two bass players, Patrick O'Hearn, Arthur Barrow, the variations are endless. Plus, we've got some fretless bass from Patrick and regular bass from Arthur. We've also got acoustic guitar in there. The guys work well together. So after The Meek Shall Inherit Nothing, we go into City of Tiny Lights with Denny singing. And a nice slide solo from Denny Wally. And then Frank doing a solo on that. And then we go into a 15-minute and 46-second version of Pound for a Brown. Starting with Ed Mann doing his solo. Then we go into Shankar. And then Frank makes things change with a keyboard solo from, I think it's Peter Wolf. And then Tommy Mars takes over on synth. And then they go into a 7/4 groove. I'm not too sure sometimes when it's Peter and when it's Tommy. Then we have Bobby Brown Goes Down. And then we have a pedestrian version of Conehead, the song that we heard a much longer version of on the other concert. And then we have the dance contest, which is about 5.5 minutes. It is a longer, unedited version of what you heard on, let me pull that album out here, Tinseltown Rebellion. Yes, the Dynamic Butch. This is where it came from, was this concert. So that's the end of the first disc, an hour long. Then we go into the second half of that concert on disc 5 with a quick version of the Black Page, less than 3 minutes long. But then we have the aftermath of the dance contest with some dual funk basses and some crowd yelling. And then we go into a 9-minute version of Little House I Used to Live In with a very nice solo from Vinnie Colaiuta. Then we go into Magic Fingers. And then we go into the Yellow Snow Suite. And then Frank once again explains, hey, let's just do the whole encore now instead of us going off the show. And when I say we're done, we're done. So he goes into Dynamo Hum with assistance from the audience members. Some girls get to do some vocals during the middle part. Then a 3-minute version of Camarillo Brillo. A good version of Muffin Man with no drunken singing this time. And some good playing. Then Peaches and Regalia. Loving the 2-bass arrangement on this as well. And that ends the concert. 26 tracks. 2 hours, 7 minutes. So you may be asking yourself, why are there only 2 concerts when there were 6 concerts in this run? Well, you're getting more than 2 concerts worth of material, first of all. And second of all, there's a lot of technical stuff that goes into making these. When these tapes were made, 24-track analog masters, after the show, Frank did not have an intention of releasing these as uncut concerts. So Frank took highlights, chopped up the tapes, and used them as he saw fit. And as I've explained with the rundown of this whole 2-concert stint here, is that Frank used these for other elements. For example, there's stuff that we haven't heard because, like, for the second show on the first night, the opening guitar solo, which has become known as Persona non grata, has ended up on You Are What You Is as the theme from the third movement of Sinister Footwear. It's that guitar solo from the second show on the first night, stripped from that concert, and with a new arrangement put on top of it. Frank did those things. So, as a result, these tapes, when the Vaultmeister went in to assemble these shows, tapes were all over the place. This isn't something they just walked in, grabbed the tapes, and transferred. He had to find all the pieces of the concerts and put them together. Now, these tapes were not in the best condition because I've heard the story that Joe Travers has told us on the Zappa cast of when it rained in Los Angeles, which it didn't do that often, rain would start leaking into the vault. And he and Dweezil would have to grab tapes, move them to a different part of the vault so that they wouldn't get damaged by water. And so we're fighting possible water damage. Plus, the formulation on these tapes were in such a state where what you have to do in order to transfer these onto high-resolution digital so that you can mix them down into a usable format for consumption, you have to bake these tapes in a special convection oven, which is not a cheap thing to do. So it's a long process to get all this stuff together. We're lucky we're getting these 2 concerts, and this is a volume 1. When will the other concerts come out? We don't know yet. I don't think the Vaultmeister knows. I don't think Universal knows, but I do know one thing: the work continues because it is their duty to get that taken care of. They're doing the Lord's work, as they say. So the fact that you've got 5 CDs in such a beautifully put together package and with such fantastic sound, the high cost of this box set, in my eyes, is justified. But if you have a priority of hearing the music and not having the Halloween costume, you can buy the downloads. It's a lot less expensive. You can also stream it. It's on popular streaming services. So check that out. Let me change my background here and let you know that this set is everything that I thought it was going to be and more. Great packaging, but more than anything else, great music. The reason why they call this concert the big one is not just because Frank said it was. It was a 4-hour concert with classic, amazing versions that would never be repeated. And we are lucky to be able to listen to this stuff. So I highly recommend it in any form that you get it in. Like I said, there's the 2-record set, there's the CD, the single CD, which is highlights of the Halloween concert. But to get the whole experience, you can get the whole thing from Universal. You can get it from the Zappa store, and I believe it may be ending up at brick and mortar stores as well. And another option currently, as I speak, through the Zappa store, is that if you buy the 78 box and make it a trio with the 73 box and the 81 box, you will get a massive discount, and you'll get all 3 of those boxes with all of those concerts. So, if you want to really deepen your listening of Zappa concerts in the Halloween phase, that's what you can do. I want to thank you for watching, because I had a great time, and I hope you do too. Keep on listening to Zappa. You will be rewarded, and there are more videos to come. So, have a great day. Go listen to some music. Go listen to Halloween.